You can tell. I can feel it like it was that day. So they start asking questions after questions after questions, going in different directions. Has he been out of the country? Has he been around animals in the woods? Or, we're just having to answer these questions the best we knew, although we didn't live, right where he was, and he didn't tell us everything he did. It took them at least 10 days of running tests, waiting for the results, eliminating, this possibility, eliminating that possibility.
They didn't know if it was the West Nile virus during the time. That was a big thing. They didn't know if it was something he had, just acquired through, it could be something local. They didn't even know what the problem was. They were doing countless tests, and they were saying, what is causing this young guy, to be in a coma and not be able to even recover from it? And the infection had gone into his spinal cord and was going into his brainstem. And they were saying that they were able to see lesions that were forming on his brain. And they were like, you guys just know that we're getting to a place that it's not hopeful any longer.
So we're just there, just praying, for his life, that he would, his body would, respond and come out of it and be okay. I remember one time they went to take him for tests. We were in the room. They took him. They got outside the door, and his heart stopped, and they came running back. All the medical staff surrounding that bed, pulling the bed back into the room, and one was on top of him, giving him CPR, trying to revive him. And I just went to the floor. Because I just thought, that was it. I didn't think we'd have him after that.
Despite his mother's prayers, Shawn Birmingham wasn't getting any better.
It was one of those situations where you're like, this doesn't feel right. I was like, what? And, how, what? Explain, Lord, help us. We're, believing that it's going to be amazing. And they're just saying, thanks for trying, and I still in my mind, couldn't receive or accept it, but I was just listening to what the doctors were saying. And they were saying, if you're on a ventilator, more than 7 days, it's because it's usually keeping you alive, unless they've induced the coma. And this was not an induced coma. This was something that was happening organically from his body trying to protect itself. And so they were saying, we're getting to a place where again, as you all may know or may not know, when you're living in a hospital, whether it be in a lobby or a waiting room or even in a hospital room, it becomes physically taxing, exhausting, and you're living for any ounce of hope, moment to moment, day to day. And you live off positive. You're like, give me anything I can hang on to. And the doctors weren't giving him anything. They were like, we're getting close to possibly the end. And so, day 8, day 9, day 10, by day 11, the family was saying, we don't know what to do, and the doctors were saying, you might want to make a decision.
Our children are lent to us from God. God gives those to us as a gift. But when it comes down to, you have to give him back now. You may not have him after today, but you have to be able to give him to me. It's a different, you really have to look at your faith and how you're going to handle that.
It came a time when the family said, we're going to kind of gather. We've made a decision to remove him from the ventilator and just say our piece and honor his life. And I was like, oh my goodness, really? And it's one of those things again where you don't want to receive it, but you just, the way the world is presenting it to you is like there's kind of no hope here. And so you just kind of take what you have left and try to live with that. And so they were saying, we're thinking around 2:30, we're going to do this. And I was like, oh, I was obligated at the time. I think it was on a Sunday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken. And I was like, I can't be there till around 5. So can you wait till I come with you and be there too? And again, I wasn't part of the family. I was kind of an adopted for 11 days, and I didn't want to impose that upon them because this is their privacy and their child. But I just kind of wanted to, be there to give him love. And so they were like, well, we'll try and wait till 5 if we can,
A little after 4 p.m., Shon Hudspeth started preparing to go to the hospital. He prayed for the family's comfort and for their peace. And while he gathered his things, he picked up his phone.
And it was around 4:15. I had a text message that said, he just woke up.
This story is crazy. Here's the craziest thing about it, though. Shawn Birmingham has never heard it. He knows he was in a coma. He knows Shon Hudspeth painted a portrait for him. But he doesn't know his family was going to take him off the ventilator at 2:30. He doesn't know Shon Hudspeth asked them to wait till 5. And he doesn't know he woke up during that delay. At first, I was sad and a little bit confused that Michelle had never told her son the whole story. But from what I've gathered, Michelle Birmingham is actually a hero. Keeping the story from her son protected him from any further mental trauma or confusion at pivotal stages in his recovery. And after 8 years of Michelle telling a slightly different story, the real one has almost been forgotten. And I think that's okay, because when I look at my own kids, I realize Michelle doesn't care how her son woke up. She just cares that he's awake. Enter Shawn Birmingham. Since you woke up from the coma, have there been specific effects from the coma?
I'd learned to talk again, to eat, to walk. And so that was very difficult for me when all my life I've been a very independent person, that I love to do stuff on my own. And at this point, I couldn't do anything. And since then, it's been years of ups and downs. Things would go good for a while, and then they would plunge. My speech would be fine, and all of a sudden, I'm talking like this.
My speech would be fine. Then all of a sudden, I'd be talking like this. Shawn used to dream of being in the orchestra. He used to run. He used to be able to talk without slurring his words. He used to drive. He can't do any of those things anymore.
And that was the hardest part, was trying to get my life back to where I was and where I thought it should be. And realizing that I can't be that anymore.
Before the coma, Shawn lived in Nashville on his own. After the coma, he moved to a small town in Mississippi and stays with his parents. Before the coma, he was perfectly healthy and fit. After the coma, he was eventually diagnosed with MS. Before the coma, he had lots of friends his age. After the coma, his closer friends are his parents' age. If Shawn's life was a before and after photo, I wouldn't buy his product. In before and after photos, though, I can only see things like whiter smiles and more defined abs. I can't see what's really going on.
He gave me a chance to a new life, and he knew that eventually I would get to the point where I couldn't do anything. So he gave me all these people that, I could really look up to and see what God can do, and God, how He can bless me, regardless of how I feel about where I live and how I live, and about not being able to revive myself. I have a new outlook on God's provision for me.
From everything Shawn Birmingham said, he seemed to have gained a new perspective on life. So at the very end of our conversation, I asked him point blank, is life more fulfilling now than it was before your coma?
Yes, absolutely. I'm still not perfect. I never will be, but I'm in peace now.
I'm at peace now. All the way back in 2015, when I heard Shon Hudspeth's story of God asking him to act on a small creative idea and his friend waking up from a coma because of it, this wasn't the storybook ending I had envisioned. Somehow, it's better.
I have to look at it as if I didn't listen to the Lord at the beginning to do the painting for him, I wouldn't have been in the picture at all, nor would, the painting. But because I did listen to the Lord and I did, act upon the painting, and it did make this part of his story, I was able to see God revive him.
Audible. Thanks to Jake the Snake Townsend and the Way Nation team for filming and recording these interviews. The theme music is brought to you by my favorite neighbor and aspiring Olympic hammer thrower, Joe Fry. We call him Thor. And thanks to Shon Hudspeth, Michelle Birmingham, and Shawn Birmingham for sharing your stories with us. You can find more fun and meaningful podcasts, videos, and blogs on waynation.com. If you have an Audible God story, I definitely want to hear it. Go to audiblegod.com now and share your story with me. Again, go to audiblegod.com and you'll be able to email and call me. If you want a friend of yours to play this podcast on her earbuds, it's up to you. Hit subscribe, then text the first friend that comes to mind and say, hey, you got to listen to the Audible God podcast. It's Audible, awesome. Well, not bad.